In this video, we're going to take a look at FlyDigi's latest and greatest controller to come out of China at $160, a whopping price for a relatively whopping controller. We are going to unbox, test, and review the ever-living shit out of this controller in every aspect, part, and component. But to not waste your time and give you a little food for thought while you're watching the intro, the triggers on this are not as good as the Vader 3, which is a cheaper controller, but this is the fastest controller I have ever used, and that includes overclocked controllers.
Welcome aboard, Stallion or Stallionette.
Over 200 gamepads tested, not letting off the throttle. Controller looking like a model. Reviews go down smooth. Pass me the bottle. I got paddles. Back to the lobby with a waddle. Gaming news, gear reviews, more controllers than you can use. A man of many faces, recording by the Smokin' Aces. I wasn't born the controller captain. It was you bucking Broncos that made it happen. Enough input delay. This video is slapping. A quick disclaimer for my audience, the Stallions and Stallionettes, this controller was sent for review. It did take quite a bit of time to get to me. It is here now. It was sent from FlyDigi, but this is going to be an honest, comprehensive review. I haven't been paid or told to say anything about it, so if there's any cons, shortcomings, or areas of improvement, which there are, you're going to hear about it. So these companies make better products over time. Now, there have been some big strides or improvements on the FlyDigi website over the last 2 years or so. However, one thing I don't like to see is the fact that you cannot get any additional information about certain controllers. For example, the Apex 4 that we're reviewing today, whether you click on buy now, it's going to direct you to Amazon. But if you click down here, you think you would get some kind of a product landing page where it would have all the manufacturer specs and key features, but you don't have that. It just guides you to Amazon. But luckily that does take you to the correct link for the correct controller. That was a big problem in previous FlyDigi reviews. And this is $160, which is very expensive for FlyDigi controllers. Previously, the most expensive controller that I've tested and reviewed from FlyDigi was that limited edition Apex 3, which I also tested and reviewed on the channel. That one's currently unavailable now, and they don't know if it's going to be coming back in stock. Well, goddamn, I'm glad I locked one into my collection. So our only resource for getting the key features of this controller is going to be the Amazon listing page, where of course there's some grammatical errors and whatnot, starting here with the first sentence. This is a gobbly, strongest and newest stick, probably globally, but even that wouldn't make any sense in this sentence. The nitty gritty of it is that you can adjust joystick strength. I always keep my left stick at the loosest possible tension and the right as taut as possible. Highest resistance, highest stick. As for the trigs, this does rock the same triggers as the Apex 3, which are those force feedback joints, so very similar to the adaptive triggers inside the PS5 DualSense, except not so much because you don't have the software to back it up, unlike Sony Interactive Entertainment that pumps in all those cool effects where each gun you pick up has a different trigger breaking point, different cars have a different feeling gas and brake, a bow gets stronger as you pull it back. You don't get any of that with these. So the only effect you're getting is you manually adjusting stroke, damping, shock, and other effects in the software, but you do not get nothing that you do in game is going to alter how the triggers feel. We've got a little bit of contradictory information. It says for force feedback trigger instruction that it actually changes according to, get my glasses out here, real-time changes in game scenery. So how the Sony DualSense controller works. Negatory comrades, this works in the FlyDigi space application. You adjust things like the strength, dampening, and wall pressure point when it activates, things like that. I've used the Apex 3, which has these exact adaptive trigger modules extensively on PC, and I've never experienced it where a different gun has a different trigger breaking point or anything like that, but we are going to look at those triggers in the software because that's how you're going to adjust them. What's not whack is going to be the 1500 milliamp hour battery. Now this has what's called stereo vibration, which is just a fancy word of saying you've got the two smaller trigger motors and then the two larger rumble force motors in the palms. One of the biggest features of this controller, or most notable, most gaudy if you will, is that full color interactive display screen, just like we've seen with the Turtle Beach Stealth Ultra. That was pretty much the only controller that implemented this properly. Will the FlyDigi Apex 4 be the second controller to not make an absolute mess of having an onboard screen? Guess we'll find out. It is useful because on the fly you can adjust your trigger force feedback instead of having to diddle around in the software. You can map your back buttons from there, test your buttons diagnostic style if you're having some issues, restore to default configuration if you fucked up, change the screen brightness, vibration intensity, screen language, thank God, sleep time, and factory reset. Now there is a claimed 1000 Hertz wired and wireless polling rate using the FlySync wireless dongle. That'll be tested in this video. You damn well knew it. You've come to the right place for that. The D-pad is an absolute dream. It is an 8-way mechanical, not obnoxiously loud, and the surface plastics do feel good. It also looks pretty good as well. You do have the 2.0 face buttons, Hall effect thumbstick modules, which should never give you stick drift unless you have a recentering spring go out on you, but these are a little bit different. They have like a sealed housing. They are still spring loaded, but I don't even know how you'd get at the fucking recentering spring on them. If these ever did get stick drift on you, you'd have to do more work to get to the recentering spring because there's a little plastic shroud or cover, so you'd have to remove that first, or just swap out the whole modules. That's probably what you'd do. Like the previous FlyDigi controllers, you have 4 remappable back buttons, M1 through 4, which can be done on the fly. And one of the best features, and that is going to be high precision 6-axis gyro mapping. So that is going to be that motion sense aiming, which I know you PC players love for clicking faces. The shoulder buttons, or bumpers if you will, are going to be bumping people off because they're S-shaped ergonomic design handlebar. A lot of fucking words thrown in there, but they do feel pretty good. Software side of the house, we are still using FlyDigi Space, and this does have multiple platforms supported, being PC, which is going to be Windows 10 and 11, Mac OS. You can also use this on Switch, mobile devices, TV, Android, pretty much anything with Bluetooth connectivity. And using that 2.4 gigahertz dongle, you'll be able to connect to a lot of single board computers like Raspberry Pis. And since this has Bluetooth, a lot of converters or adapters will allow you to use this on Xboxes, PlayStations, other platforms that it ain't meant for, but we'll test that in this video, of course. And it is cut and dry with a periodic 1 year of warranty coverage from purchase.
As for the packaging, I think the box is a little bit confusing for both Chinese and North American customers because the text is jumbled together. But what you're looking for is the make and model down here. It's the FlyDigi Apex 4, successor of the Apex 3. And this is an elite gaming controller. Another word for a pro controller. A little bit of a crease or mini dent in the top left, but I'm not too worried about the contents inside the box. You will have a part and serial number in the top right. Pulling that outer sleeve to the side, it's time to give him the O'Doyle treatment. Rule the game.
O'Doyle rules!
O'Doyle, I got a feeling your whole family's going down, but I got a review to do. Flipping up the top section, you are going to have a little foam divider. And this is new to the game. In previous FlyDigi controllers, it has only had this black parchment with Chinese text, and I've just had to guess what pleasant words they're saying to me. That little signature from the CEO. But flipping the pancake around on backside, you will see this blue section is in my native tongue, English. You get a little blurb about the controller, and then some key features, some of which are extremely exciting, such as the adjustable thumbsticks, the first of its kind in China. Not over here in America. We've had that muscle car, that Elite Series 2 with 3-stage tension on the thumbsticks. You will have a 10-foot braided USB-C cable. No dust covers on the USB-A or C end, but there is FlyDigi branding on the A. And you do have a Velcro tieback that will stay connected. This isn't the most lightweight thing in the world, but it is quite flexible. This is a satisfactory cable. I also do like the color theme here with the black and blue. Beating the ass, black and blue. The controller is simply gorgeous, but I won't jump ahead to cosmetics just yet. You are going to have your dongle, which has a little FlyDigi logo, pretty easy to miss, pretty inconspicuous. Little hole, not a glory hole. I don't know what that's for. And just like the previous versions, it has this gloss section, which isn't as noticeable on the white as it is in the black, having piano black down the center and then matte on the outside was a horrible look. This is less of a horrible look, but still not the most sensual and doesn't feel the best in hand. It's also a little bit large for a dongle, so it's going to be kind of oogly sticking off the front of your console or PC tower. And then you are going to have your instruction manual. Busted the biscuits out that box. Sim popper tool, Chinese instructions on this side, English instructions on this side. Also a couple of sticky adhesive pads in there. 2 pieces of documentation inside the box. The first one is going to be a little placard showing you some of their other products, and they do have a ton of other stuff, cooling fans, earbuds, but what we really give a damn about on this channel is going to be the controllers. Well, that's a bunch of malarkey. I review all gaming peripherals and electronic gadgets and gizmos. When it applies to FlyDigi, what I'm really appealed by is their controllers. Their gamepad lineup, especially this devilish bastard, which won my controller of the year last year. The instruction manual, pamphlet, or brochure is not terrible. In fact, I think it's a big step up from previous FlyDigi controllers, which I've bashed up and down the block. And there's also a QR code if you want to get an instruction manual on your phone or tablet to be able to pinch and zoom, and you might even get color pictures out of it.
Scanning that QR code, you would think you'd get some killer software instruction manual. I'm really glad I scanned that on screen. Thank you for autofocusing for me. What the shit am I supposed to do with this? Now I can see PC and Switch there, so I'm gonna go ahead and click on PC because I want those instructions. Where do I go from here? I speak English. Speaking of fucked, this onboard screen, which should be a really killer feature, I have tried every button combination. No adjustment on the fly just yet, but we'll get it up and running. If not in this video, that's what that part 2 follow-up's for. Not just for milking you for views until your udders are dry, but when I figure out new things about controllers that are more confusing than they should be. If you're gonna have a feature as gimmicky as a screen, at least make it user-friendly and easy to use, and have an instruction manual that actually is readable for your North American audience, which is a big part of your sales.
As for the cosmetics or appearance, it knocked her ass out because it is so damn gorgeous, except I have one major complaint, which is basically this mirror in the front so you can check your makeup before each match. I thought there was some kind of film or cover on here, some kind of dust cover, plastic strip. It's not. This thing collects fingerprints and micro scratches like nobody's business, and it doesn't really serve a purpose other than to cast light back at you. As soon as you fire it up, you will get that startup animation, a little RGB on the palm grip. I'm gonna do that one more time for you. because the startup animation is actually pretty slick. And you can see from this angle, the screen actually is recessed a little bit deep-like underneath that plastic cover. RGB lights are controllable in the software, although by default it's rotating through the spectrum, which I think looks pretty good. The way the RGB is implemented, I think looks pretty damn classy and sassy. Overall, not only does this not offend me, but I think it looks pretty damn sensual. You've got these transparent blue triggers, and then you've got to comment on these thumbstick modules, which I've never seen anything like this. They're completely sealed with that sphere, that clear dome, if you will. It looks phenomenal. Other than that reflective surface in that center section, this is a damn good looking controller. I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. As for build quality, there's no major panel gap where the front and rear shell meet. These rubber grips feel phenomenal. Not only are they soft and supple, but I don't really foresee these breaking apart anytime soon, although, well, obviously only time will tell. Plastics don't feel very cheap, flimsy, porous. Surface materials feel great. All the buttons sound nice. Build quality, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Repeat, 8 out of 10. As for the D-pad or direction buttons, I am a big fan, as I mentioned during the summary section. A couple of things I'm gonna show you real quick. You can pop and remove this bad boy. There is no swappable options. Be kind of cool if there was a typical 4-point and then this hybrid. It is a hybrid, not a straight up wheel, because you can see there is still a typical 4-point in there. You cannot put this in the wrong way. I've tried and I almost broke the D-pad. Oh. The D-pad is simply phenomenal. It is an 8-way micro switch, and it is also pretty damn quiet for a mechanical switch, and also strikes a good balance between being light but not giving you any false actuations. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Repeat, a 9 out of 10. It's a high scoring D-pad it is. I was trying something new with the lighting in that last segment. Didn't like it at all. It was dark as hell. These are the 2.0 phaser action buttons. They are mechanical. Now these are just a skosh louder than I'd like, but they're not as loud as the Razer switches. Definitely louder than AIM's mechanical switches, which don't even sound like mechanicals because they're not clicky, they're just tactile. I don't have a problem with the size or spacing of these buttons, but I am not a fan of the shape. They do have that rounded Xbox design. I'd prefer if these were a little bit flatter. Cosmetically, they do look quite nice. I'm gonna give these face buttons an 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. Now as for the accessory button suite, that's going to be start, select, this home button, and the power button over here, which is really dumb that this is the power button. I think it should be this FlyDigi logo, which is absolutely nothing, just a big fingerprint magnet. That's been a complaint on the previous FlyDigi controllers, and that transfers right on over to this new flagship. I really wish that this button was up here. This is the actual button to turn on the controller. Plus you also have a toggle in the back, kind of that double redundancy, which I don't really like. You have to flip it here, turn it on with that little guy. I don't have a problem with start and select, despite the fact they're at kind of a weird angle and they're oval shaped. They work as you would expect. I will say on the left analog stick, if you have a higher cap on there, like a KontrolFreek, you have to reach up and over to hit select, but that's okay. But this is my biggest gripe or complaint. The home button and the circle button should be up here somewhere. Now as for the thumbsticks, analog sticks, front niblets, giblets, doodads, MicRads, they're pretty goddamn sweet. I do have a small complaint though. This is a Pro controller, pretty expensive Pro controller, and you do not have any swappable thumbstick cap options. They do sell them separately, but by golly, this is the highest end flagship. It should include fucking everything. That's like when you buy the highest end model or trim of a car and there's still dead end switches on the dash. Like there should be additional buttons for lights and features that you don't have. Yeah, frustrating there on the dealership floor, frustrating right here in the office as well. But I do like the rubber or silicone compound, very grippy, and the modules themselves are insane. We're gonna talk about them more on the PC side of the house. They're unlike anything that I've tested from Ghoulie Kit, GameSir, any of the Hull Effect dogs, even HYPR, who I just talked about in a video yesterday. Some issues behind the scenes, but they are making steps to remedy the problems. Now these thumbstick caps are removable, even though there is not any swappable options. Now the cool thing about that, other than the fact you can buy optional ones, is it makes getting KontrolFreeks on a little bit easier, because instead of pushing down on the thumbstick modules and then pulling really hard to get the caps off, you just pop these off. Makes more sense. But you have to be very careful because these only snap on one way. Well, technically two ways, this way and that way, but you definitely can break them by forcing them in the wrong way. My biggest gripe or complaint is just that there's no included thumbstick cap options. There should be different heights, maybe different shapes, domed or concaved. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10 because of that. If there was included options, this would easily be a 9 out of 10. At least they sell replacements, but goddamn, do you really want to buy additional stuff after spending 160 bucks on a controller and waiting several weeks to have it shipped from China? Y'all want to see something real slick with these thumbsticks?
Who wants to see me do a big ass stunt?
They can get a little bit tighter. Go ahead and pop off these caps. Bam, bam. Thank you, ma'am. Get a fingernail up underneath this front faceplate. It's magnetized. It'll lift up on you. Sweetheart, you're making me look... Oh, might want to remove the D-pad first. Now that faceplate's ready for action. You're gonna have a metal tool in the right palm grip, which comes out very easily with a fingernail. Little FlyDigi branding on there, love to see that. This is very similar to Microsoft's tool with the Elite Series 2, but a little bit smaller and lighter, and that's why this slot is very beneficial, because you just put it back when you're done. Your adjustment's gonna be to the right of both of the thumbstick modules. By default, these are where they were set, and I want the strongest possible tension on the right, so I'm gonna jack it down nice and taut like. It just keeps spinning. You think that you're done, but it just keeps going. I think I'm at 2.5 full rotations and it's still going. Whoa, it does give you noticeably increased tension though. So the exact same configuration I run on my HYPR, decreased tension on the left, increased tension on the right, same thing as my Elite Series 2, and I gotta say, it makes a huge difference, very noticeable. I've got this one backed out completely, turning it counterclockwise or lefty-loosey, and it's loose. She's a loose goose. She's been around the block once or twice. Now this one over here, super taut. Like, fuck, especially without a cap on there, it's really hard to move this module. So you're gonna want some kind of an increased height thumbstick cap, like maybe a KontrolFreeks. Discount code in the description below. I also love that you can see the vibration motors in here, or at least the fins for them. You will have a larger stack on the left. That's how they're counterbalanced. And it looks cool. Jesus.
Going wired with the Apex 4 on the PC, we are going to take a look at these thumbstick modules in GPT, which are all over the fucking road. So I can occasionally cheese it to snap back to that perfect resting default, which is 0.00002 or 0.00392. Those are common perfect resting values for potentiometer and Hall effect thumbstick modules. And I can kind of get them there, but these are wandering the yard a little bit. We're definitely not talking out of the box stick drift territory. You wouldn't expect that. Very responsive, so I'm not seeing any kind of weird inner dead zone where it jumps from here to here automatically without you feathering it. And not only is there no weird outer dead zone, but it's actually kind of an enigma here. It pushes past the radial wheel, which I've never seen. So you're getting 110% input basically. Shall we get a circularity test? You already know that we're going to get a few this away to the left. Awesome. So pretty good results here. Let's go a little bit slower and let's go clockwise this time. So in the realm of some good potentiometer thumbsticks, you would see these on a stock Xbox or PlayStation controller, generally anywhere between the 10 and 16% average error rate, sometimes a little bit lower, sometimes a little higher, but that's usually where we see them. And these are pretty even, although I will say there's a little something going in the down left on the right analog stick. Doesn't concern me yet, hasn't concerned me in gameplay, and isn't frightening me in GPT just yet either, but that's what these follow-up part 2 videos are for. If something happens down the road, you know about it. Also, I did not mention this over at the desk, but it needs mention now because it's another pro regarding the thumbsticks. Clicking down L3 and R3 is the silentest, the most quiet of any controller I have ever used. Check it out. Kind of a tight, secure, deep thud, not that usual tick, 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 little click when you clicked on the sticks. Yeah, these are nice biscuits here.
As for the bumpers and triggers, starting with the bumpers, they did redesign the shape of them, but they are very similar to what was used in the FlyDigi Vader 3, which I actually did like those. These do actuate a little bit easier, sometimes a little bit too easy on the side, but that does make it much easier to press up here. Since it is on a swivel or hinge mechanism, this is usually the area that's hard to press, and it now isn't. But because of that, this area is now much easier to press, almost too easy. You do have a little bit of dot, some stippling for grip, but it's only right here on this tiny little section. I wish it was extended around the entire bumper, which is slick plastic over here. Same exact complaint on the triggers as that stippling. Those grippy dots are only right here, but not on the sides. And I personally would have loved to see the adaptive trigger-like feature completely ditched and just the typical on-off trigger stop system implemented on this controller. That is just my personal preference because I don't think the software really backs up that feature, that having those adaptive trigger modules in there. And with a pro controller like this, it would be better just to have some on-off trigger stops that cut out about 95% of your trigger pull when you're playing them shooties. I'm gonna give the triggers a 7 out of 10 and the bumpers an 8 out of 10. As for the rear inputs, I'm starting to feel like a little bit of a broken record with these FlyDigi controllers because the rear buttons are identical on the last 3 or 4 models that I've tested, most notably the Vader 3 Pro, which is last year's controller of the year. And while these are a step up from that when it comes to remapability because you can use this screen to remap, it's still not as fast as using a combination of holding down specific buttons. So holding down these 2 paddles puts it into remapping mode, then you fire off what face button or D-pad, or clicking down which stick you want bound. Not what you get here. It's unfortunate. Now you can navigate through the screen, which just like the Turtle Beach Stealth Ultra is a decent way of mapping buttons on the fly to where you don't need a PC. As were on previous FlyDigi controllers, you did need the FlyDigi Space app to bind the rear buttons. Ergonomically, they are identical, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this street, but they do feel phenomenal where you want to naturally wrap your hands around the palm grip. You got these 2 outer buttons, a little bit of a trek for the inner buttons. I wish these were maybe down here where your ring fingers are. And a complaint I've always had is there's a different audible sound between these buttons, which feel a little bit quieter and more secure, and then these inner buttons, which sound hollow and tinny. Lovely. Between the fact it's slow as shit to remap through the screen, which I'm going to walk you through a tour of this thing in a second, because you can control the lights and some other doodads, but because it's a little bit slow and the ergonomics are not perfect, I'm going to give these rear buttons a 7 out of 10. Repeat us. 7 out of 10. I had to second guess myself there for a second. Don't ever do it again, Kevin. 7 out of 10.
In order to get the software, you are going to go to the FlyDigi website and you're going to click on FlyDigi Game Center. Now, depending on your controller, you're going to get one of these space applications. We have the Apex 4, so we're going to get this variant. Probably already have this installed, but we'll double install it. Okay, it's 131 megabytes and downloading slow as shit. Whoa. So a lot of things happened real fast. Within a 10-second period, my controller made a noise in the adaptive triggers where the motors actually went limp and then stiffened up. I got a notification that it detects REWAS, the controller program running in the background, which may affect normal usage and blah, blah, blah. Would you like to close it? It should not be open by default. It's not. Damn, so this looks better. Yeah, this is, yes, they've made changes and this is getting better. This is exciting, but not evolving that much. It'd be great if you could control it with the gamepad as well as keyboard and mouse, but you're only controlling it with the keyboard and mouse. Clicking over here, the first tab is going to be home, and this is just a summary of all of these other tabs we're about to dick with. Now you cannot full screen this application, which sucks, and you also cannot pinch the sides and make it larger or resize it. But I do like that over here, instead of what used to be different game profiles, and I thought it was super stupid, now it's my configurations. It's actual user profiles, not per game profiles, which nobody used. Regular's the default over here. You can right click, you can rename it, you can import and export these bad boys. Boy, howdy. And as you can see, none of the rear buttons are bound in any of these 4 profiles. So out of the box, your rear buttons are completely useless to you. First thing I recommend you do is that initial firmware update if it is available. To do that, click on this drop down and you're going to see a slew of updates. The top one is software. That's the actual app, which I just installed, so that'll be up to date. But you do want to upgrade the controller, and there's a separate update for the adaptive trigger motors. Now, when you plug in the dongle, that might also pop up as an additional update. So the update process looks so much easier than previous FlyDigi controllers where you had to dig up the update file online, plug it in here. Nope, now it just says stable version. This is what you're getting. 1-click upgrade. It vibrated on my desk, scared 2 drips of piss out of me. Going pretty, there it goes. Okay, she's moving. Also, I'm getting notifications in the bottom right as pop-up noties, which is really cool. You can turn those off. Upgrade is complete. Oh, nice. And they got the full lineup now. Okay, that just went away, but I was looking at that lineup of controllers and liking what I was seeing. Now it tells me when I click on update for the controller that I am up to the latest and greatest. Let's do the trigs. These updates are fast, man. Some of these paint jobs are slick. That One Piece one, what is this over here? What do you mean my controller cannot be connected? I should slap you sideways. So that scared me. My controller wasn't being recognized with the application after the trigger update. I had to turn it off with the toggle in the back, turn it back on. I didn't see this one down here hiding, but there is also a third and final update for the LCD screen. Screen upgrade successful. Kind of finicky how you got to do this. Unplug, turn it back on, then reconnect the cable. Little vibrate, complete. Now, I'm not sure why this is. You get a software update option with this drop down and also clicking over here with this cog icon. So a little double redundancy, no, not necessary. I'm going to breeze through this application because I've already done full tours of the software suite. Over here is going to be button mapping for your rear buttons as well as all the buttons, face buttons, back buttons, you name it. Joystick, you have your sensitivity curves and you also have your dead zone, which I like to see that it is at default 0. Previous FlyDigi controllers default was 5, and I recommended you hit 0 and then hit apply. Now, me personally, my recommendation is always going to be default or linear when it comes to thumbstick sensitivity curves, response curves, if you will. These confuse the brain because you'll be getting minimal or maximal speed at a certain point, and then it'll ramp up linear all day. Now, this is separate between the left and right analog stick, and as you make changes, it says save successfully. It is actually updating in real time as I make changes, where it used to be you would have to click apply. Now, over here in motion sensing, by default, it is not mapped to anything. I am going to map it to the right joystick so I can use it for aiming. Sensitivity by default is 25, which felt pretty good for me, and I didn't need to calibrate or anything. Everything worked as it should. And this is how you're going to activate that function, where it's going to start recognizing your motions, your wrist movements. You can either hold or press a button. I'm going to press left trigger. So you click and then you press it on the controller and it'll apply it here. It'll save automatically. And now when I hold down the left trigger, I can get that finite precise aiming with my motions. And that's cool. Now over here in trigger, this is taking control of the adaptive triggers, which is separated from the left and right. General mode is going to be with the force feedback motors disabled, and you can hear them turn on and turn off as you switch modes. just like the DualSense controllers, which make a whole hoopla. But this just goes to show you that it doesn't work like it says in the instruction manual where it's going to change in game, because if it did, you wouldn't need these settings. It would just be like, oh, the Ferrari's got a real light throttle and brake, and then I get in this old rusty dusty muscle car, you know, and everything's a lot more analog and takes more strength and resistance. It doesn't work like that. You have to set it up manually here. You have a trigger lock mode, which will indeed, oh, it feels great. It creates a strong wall of resistance to where you just naturally want to stop there. And you can test your changes here. This is a phenomenal sensation because it's not only giving me vibration in the palms and those trigger motors, but you're also getting the force feedback where you're basically fighting against the strength of the triggers, which feels really cool. Now over here in general, this is pretty much just lighting. You have breathing, which is fading in and out, gradient, which is moving through the spectrum, feedback, which when the vibration motors activate, lights come on. Steady is a solid color, static and on at all times, and off is what you want if you think it's disorienting and annoying. Vibration intensity by default is 60 for the palm grips. Let's bump that up to 100, see what it's like. Holy shit. Fractured every bone in my palm. Strong. So I really like the positive changes that I've seen with the software suite. Now, if there's more changes that can be made over time, what I'd like to see is that you can pinch and resize, full screen the application, and take control of it with the gamepad, the controller. But the app is getting better for sure. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 as of now. You have a lot of control in there. Those tabs all do a lot for the controller. As for the battery life, that 1500 milliamp hour battery off 3 to 4 hours of charge time will get you an estimated 72 hours of playtime, which is long. Starting our input lag or delay testing wired in X input mode, we are going to move the left analog stick in a circle. Manufacturer's claims are correct as we are at 1 millisecond of input lag or delay on a 1000 hertz stock clock. In fact, these speeds are better than overclocked PlayStation controllers, which are generally around 0.92 to 0.98 milliseconds when on a 1000 hertz overclock. No need to overclock to 8000, just made a video on that. But this is a damn fine test. There is 0 outliers here, minimum and maximum pretty close to each other, jitter low as shit. First pull makes me happy. Let's do another one. And one thing you'll notice, this test does complete insanely fast, even faster than an overclock controller, because we are at this very fast pulling rate. Over 1000.
It's over 9,000!
But what about that FlySync adapter, the dongle? Because I'm gonna be using it wireless a lot of the time. Let's check it out. Bingo was his name. Oh, she's walking on me. That's not fun. Oh, it wasn't walking on me. What happened was, since I have decreased tension on the left thumbstick, if you just brush up against it or sneeze on it, it's registering it. Let's move that left analog stick in a circle, twist that ass in a flip. Ooh, 0.95. So a little bit slower, but we still are at that 1000 hertz pulling rate, even when wired with the dongle. Don't know why I'm talking like William Shatner. I guess it's because I'm excited about these results. I'm going to give stock input lag or delay a 10 out of 10 on this controller, as it is phenomenal, both wired and wireless. And it also changes inputs super quick, whether you're going from wired to wireless, from X input to D input. It's just recognized in every piece of software, every game, every launcher, and you can actually feel how fast this controller is, especially on the thumbsticks. That's where you're going to notice that 1000 hertz pulling rate more so. It is snappy. Snappy, snappy, snappy. But finishing up with a quick test in Gamepad LA, which is also going to show 1000 hertz pulling rate. Well, actually, it's showing around 2000.
Power levels 8,000. Huh? Now it's over 9.
And a stability of 160%. Big old fat numbers. I do want to let you guys know that this is going to be polling rate locked at the board. I was unable to overclock with the Lord of Mice overclocking software, but there really is no need, considering this is already faster than any overclocked controller that I've used. This thing is... Now I want to test the input lag or delay of the onboard Bluetooth card, which is 5.0. A little bit disappointing. I was hoping for at least 5.1, if not greater. Better than the 3.0 that's in the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, that's for goddamn sure. In order to get into Bluetooth discoverable mode, you are going to enter the screen. In the screen, which there is a full tutorial or walkthrough in this video. I don't know if it's happened yet or if that segment's coming up later, but it is timestamped in the description. Click on Connect, then click on PC, and use the D-pad to scroll over to Bluetooth. So unfortunately, in all of the Bluetooth modes, Switch, iOS, Android, and PC, none of them are recognized by the Bluetooth chip in my motherboard. So that is definitely an issue, and one that I hope gets massaged out with a feature patch or update. But if you're using it on PC, I would recommend using the dongle or wired via USB-C, and definitely not Bluetooth, as it is 5.0 and is going to be the slowest and least consistent means of connection with this controller. Okay, never mind. We got Pro Controller over here. Nothing is flashing on the controller showing that it's discoverable. I am in Switch pairing mode. Oh, awesome. This is the controller. It just vibrated in my hand and we are now paired. Now, I don't know if we're going to to be able to get an X input test because I am in switch mode. Yes, let's try Bluetooth PC mode, shall we? Just to clarify, that screen is showing that it is Bluetooth X input pairing. I don't know if you can see that icon. There's a little Bluetooth logo and then X input pairing. But it was only recognized in Switch and iOS mode, and I can't run an X input test if I'm not in X input mode, and this controller is not recognized in ReWASD as of yet. So I will say I wish FlyDigi made it more obvious that the controller is in some kind of a Bluetooth discoverable mode where either the RGB lights are flashing or the screen is a little bit more evident. All it says in small font is switch pairing mode. It's also very finicky. I've only been able to connect via Bluetooth once out of 5 attempts off camera. Yeah, I'm just gonna set this down for now. I'm sick of holding it.
That's why you watch the channel, because I put in the legwork even when it ain't easy. Getting the screen up and running, especially if you're an English-speaking individual, is virtually impossible. There's nothing in the paper instruction manual or that QR code, which is useless, for how to actually get up and running using this screen, which is one of the biggest key features and probably expenses during the build process. In order to use this godforsaken screen, you were going to hold down the home button for around 5 seconds. Now, if it just looked like this, I really wouldn't be that bent out of shape. However, this is all going to be in Chinese characters by default, and I had to kind of go through each one of these, staring at what looked like Egyptian hieroglyphics and kind of guess, yup, language. And then I saw English, and I got so excited because I knew I'd be able to read this screen. With this screen, which is not very bright and not very easy to read whatsoever in comparison to something like the Turtle Beach Stealth Ultra, this is small font, it's not color, it's not very bright. But the first thing you want to do if you're an English-speaking individual is come over here to the second to last dot, come down to language. Keep in mind that this is all going to be in Chinese characters, and then you're going to have English. Bam. Now, by default, it's going to let you know the X input is connecting. This does also have D input, switch input, and Bluetooth. What you're really going to care about is Bluetooth, because putting it in that mode will allow you to connect to dongles or adapters to use this on other consoles. But to get in and out of that menu, you're going to hold down the home button for around 3 seconds. PC, which is both X and D input, Android, which is Bluetooth, Switch, which is Bluetooth, iOS, which is Bluetooth, More, which is more Bluetooth. This is awesome. In wireless mode, you have D, X, and Switch input. The next tab is going to be for button mapping, and this does allow you to adjust the triggers. Basically, all those settings that we saw in the software, such as the vibration of the 2 trigger motors, and where you want that software or digital trigger lock system to create a wall for you. Now, over here in Button Edit, that is also how you are going to engage turbo and macro functionality, but for me, I just want to be able to rebind M1 through 4, which is the back buttons, and you can do that here from the screen, so that's cool if you don't have a PC. Then you've got configuration switch, which does give you 4 configurations or profiles that you can swap through on the fly, and this will change everything from your button bindings, vibration strength, trigger modes, and thumbstick response curves. Then you're back over here in settings, which indeed is going to be things like the brightness, which by default is at 3. I'm gonna go ahead and crank it up to the maximo of 5. Vibration, this is only synchronized control of the 2 palm motors. The Turtle Beach Stealth Ultra gives you individual control of all 4 of the motors, which is kind of cool. And then Hibernate just puts your controller back to sleep. Over here is going to be the About tab, which is going to let you know the software for your controller, the screen, and the Honda Civic Si. If I just helped you out by showing you how to navigate this screen, a like and subscribe would be greatly, greatly appreciated.
As for adapter or converter support with the Brook Accessories XB2, you have full support on Xbox Series S and X, and I would recommend connecting via PC Bluetooth mode as opposed to Switch, iOS, or Android. On the PC side of the house, it's a lot more finicky, as the only Bluetooth mode I was able to actually connect with was the Switch mode, which seems to give a little bit more latency than I'd like, and also you have the limitation of not being able to play PS5 games, only PS4 games. As for the pros, cons, and verdict with the Apex 4, we are going to start with the cons because the internet loves negativity, and well, it's just the way I structure my controller reviews. Cons, pros, verdict, outro, you know. Starting with the cons or shortcomings, I think the entire screen mechanism or part could have been left out, and those funds could have been reallocated towards better components or including the thumbstick caps, which people are expected to buy separately on Amazon. Those should be included. Also, it'd be nice if there was a carrying case. Again, all costs that could have been rebalanced from not having the screen on there. The instruction manual doesn't break down the screen at all, and that QR code is Chinese characters up and down and across. Same thing with the adaptive triggers. I would have preferred to have seen the same triggers on the Vader 3 Pro, those on-offs where when you turn them on, they do become a digital mouse click, cutting out about 99 percentile of your trigger pull. That would be more beneficial than these adaptive triggers because they don't work like the PlayStation controllers where they actually get stiffer or lighter in-game depending on what's going on. Also, I didn't like that it said that they would work like that in the instruction manual, but clear as day on the Amazon listing and on the software, and just by using the controller, you'll figure it out that it doesn't work like that. You do have to set up where you want the trigger to do things. Furthermore, FlyDigi does sell an optional charging cradle or dock, which I do absolutely think should be included, along with a carrying case. Now onto the pros, because there are a metric shit ton. Let me pound this last sip of coffee. The input lag or delay is lower than any controller I've tested. That includes with an overclock. The wired results were the fastest controller I've seen. Wireless, I've seen faster. I've had better, sweetheart, but not with a wireless dongle right out of the box like that. Fucking impressive. The triggers feel good for what they are. Again, I think they shouldn't have used the adaptive triggers, and FlyDigi should have used the typical on-offs, but they do feel good when you're using the adaptive trigger feature if you set it up correctly for each game. Again, that's a huge pain in the ass. You launch a new racing game, you've got to drag the sliders. You see what I'm saying? Those triggers should have been ditched. Cosmetically, this is an absolutely stellar, stunning, gorgeous controller. The only thing that breaks up the sexiness is that large sticker in the back, which I know has to be there for regulatory information, but it could be smaller or white or grayed out. The D-pad is absolutely phenomenal. Same thing with the face buttons. They're both mechanical, clicky, but not overly loud. I am more of a fan of the D-pad than I am the face buttons, but they're both great. The rear buttons were okay on the Vader 3 Pro. They're a little bit better now because you can bind them on the screen, but the buttons have always been serviceable on FlyDigi controllers. This 4-button layout's no different. Ergonomically, this is a freakishly comfortable controller. Think of an Xbox controller with nice, supple, rubberized grips around it, and that's what you're getting. The FlyDigi website has gotten a lot better to where now when you click on a product, it is going to take you to the right Amazon listing to buy it. Amazon is currently the only place to buy these other than the large Chinese vendors like AliExpress, Alibaba, Temu, Wish.com, which you can occasionally find Chinese controllers on, but I don't really advise purchasing from those. They don't have the best customer support, and they usually take a long time for shipping. The adjustable tension thumbstick modules are phenomenal. The modules themselves are awesome. They perform great in Gamepad Tester, really good in gameplay, but the fact you can adjust tension, and there's a big range of adjustment. Unlike the Elite 2, which is only light, medium, and hard, this lets you adjust several turns. I was turning for a long time. I want to say 3 or 4 complete turns, and it did seem like it was adjusting it the whole time. Also, just the looks of these modules, even if they're not actually more dust-proof from being sealed in those little clear spheres, they look super cool. So as for the verdict, is this now my favorite FlyDigi controller? No, I actually still prefer the Vader 3 Pro, which is cheaper. It's at $90, and I've seen it on sale recently for $80. That's wacko tobacco. But if you do want to smoke the tobacco that this gamepad offers you, and you want that screen, you can use this on multiple platforms. PC, Mac, and Nintendo are supported out of the box, but with a converter or adapter, like the ones linked in the description below, you can use this on PlayStation to play PS4 games and Xbox to do whatever the fuck you want. I understand that this is the highest end flagship from FlyDigi, but me personally, I do still prefer the Vader 3 Pro. It's cheaper, and it has the triggers that I actually like more than these joints, and it doesn't have the screen, which is going to be flashing that animation in my face, and I can't figure out how to turn it off just yet. All the FlyDigi reviews that I've conducted, as well as the controllers themselves, are linked in the description below. Drop in the comment section below what you think of this gamepad, and I will see you Stallions and Stallionettes tomorrow. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps to get seen by more gamers, so this information will reach and assist them as well. Much like the back of the TV, I've got plugs for all of my socials down there in the description below. And your wallet will greatly thank you if you check the description, because there are exclusive discounts on a ton of products, including controllers, KontrolFreeks, keyboards, mouse pads, clothes, and energy drinks. And keep in mind that you, the viewer, keep this channel running. The more Stallions and Stallionettes trotting around the stable, the better, so mollywop that subscribe button like it owes you money, and we'll have the same amount of fun tomorrow.